And we are less than 19 months away from the 2012 election, and if time is money, then one man is already hard at work to make the most of both. Real estate mogul Donald Trump, who came in second only to Mitt Romney in a recent Wall Street Journal poll, is making more television appearances than the president these days, and his name quickly climbs now the list of possible GOP contenders. Even the White House cannot ignore this media frenzy.
What do you make of Donald Trump and raising this issue? Do you think it's going to be a big issue in the campaign?
I don't. I think I saw Donald Trump's kind of rising in some polls, and given his behavior and spectacle the last couple weeks, I hope he keeps on rising, because I don't think there's zero chance that Donald Trump would ever be hired by the American people to do this job.
Now, while the answer to that remains to be seen, the Donald continues to search for other answers and ask tough questions that no one else wants to, like the truth about President Obama's birth certificate, an investigation which Governor Sarah Palin seems to support.
He's not just throwing stones and from the sidelines. He's digging in there. He's paying for researchers to find out why President Obama would have spent $2 million to not show his birth certificate. So, you know, more power to him.
All right, so just how much of a threat could Donald Trump prove to be to the president? Here with reaction, the one and only, soon-to-be-released bestseller. When is the book coming out? Ann Coulter.
June 7th, the day after I'm on your TV show to talk about it.
All right, well, you won't give us the title. Are you ready to release it?
No, not yet.
Okay, you won't give us the title, and I want an early copy, and I'm going to make predictions where you get in the most trouble, because it's a certainty.
I bet you'll get it wrong.
I bet I'll get it right.
Nobody has ever been able to guess what they will go hysterical on.
Well, we're looking forward to it. All right, what do you think of Donald Trump?
Well, I think maybe I've been watching too much Charlie Sheen, because Donald Trump seems perfectly sane to me. I don't know where he gets this $2 million Obama has spent to keep his birth certificate quiet. He posted his birth certificate on his webpage. I am glad that Donald Trump is bringing it up so that people who haven't really been paying attention and don't know that the American Spectator, Human Events, Fox News, you know, every conservative outlet has already shot down this rumor, which, by the way, was started by the Hillary Clinton campaign. Now they will have a chance to find out this is Donald Trump's Pierre Salinger moment. You can't believe everything you read on the internet. Obama has produced his birth certificate. There were announcements that ran in two contemporaneous Hawaiian newspapers at the time. The head of the Hawaiian Medical Records has announced, I have seen the long form you all want. I don't know why the long form is considered more credible than the short form. They're both from the same office. The State Department accepts the short form, or as we call it, the birth certificate. Hawaii accepts the birth certificate, short form. So, I mean, it is a conspiracy theory that won't die on the internet, but every responsible conservative organization to look at it has shot it down, which is why you normally hear it being talked about exclusively on the liberal cable stations.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting point, and one of the main people demanding it be released is, interestingly, thrill up our leg, Chris Matthews. Why don't they just release it? I mean, it does raise a question, but you bring up good points, not the least of which we're going to talk to Donald Trump on this show later this week. We'll ask him, but there's, I think, a broader, bigger issue here is that all of a sudden an issue that was on the periphery a little bit, he hits it hard, and people take note. So what is it about him that, you know, when he speaks, people listen, and, you know, those issues resonate?
Well, two things. I mean, I think the main thing is no conservative who talks on TV or has a column or has a magazine has mentioned the birth certificate issue, because we've looked at it and have discounted it. You have people who want to get, you know, hits to their websites or want to get listeners to their radio show who will keep ginning people up about this. But it is one of the rare conservative, well, I suppose more conservative than liberal, only because it's anti-Obama. But I don't even know that these are conservatives promoting it. As I say, this came out of the Hillary Clinton campaign. So Donald Trump is the only person who would be invited on a TV show who is pushing the birther thing. That's why it's getting attention, and of course liberals are delighted.
Well,
I think Obama
him,
is delighted.
It's not the only thing that he's talked about. I mean, he's talking about America's position in the world, our economic policy, balancing budgets. You know, China is not America's friends. So he's a lot more substantive, but once that became an issue and he said it, then it just blew up in every interview that he does, and I'll ask him about it, but it's not the key, the most important part of our interview. All right, so if it's not going to be...
No, you'll notice who's asking him about it. It is the liberal media. They want to keep talking about it because it helps discredit all opposition to Obama. There are a lot of reasons to think Obama is a very bad president who is doing very bad things to this country. The idea that he was born in Kenya is not one of them, but it allows liberals, the mainstream media, the White House itself to keep saying, oh, all opposition to me, it's these crazy birthers. Well, no, it isn't. You haven't heard that on Fox News. You haven't heard it in Human Events, in National Review, or American Spectator, all of which have shot it down.
All right, let me ask, as you look at the field of candidates, who in your mind jumps out at you the most, and how important is how the Republicans handle the budget and what you thought of the budget deal? How important is that going to be for whoever the ultimate candidate is?
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, I think that's part of the reason that Donald Trump is so popular as a potential presidential candidate, that we don't have a very strong field. And I have news for you. The money people, the big GOP donors, are taking the position that they're holding their money until they find out at the end of the summer whether Chris Christie is running. And if he doesn't run, they'll give it to Romney. But right now, they're holding out for Chris Christie. And as I've said before, I think Chris Christie... if it's not Chris Christie, it will be Romney. I think Chris Christie would win. I'm not so sure about Romney. He might.
Yeah,
he
but
might
I
be
keep
Obama.
bringing. You want Chris Christie badly. Have you talked to him about it? Because I've interviewed him
As do
4
all
times.
Republicans who want to win the White House,
I
Sean.
got it, but I've interviewed him 4 times. I have pressed him as hard as he can be pressed. He says he's not running.
I know, but it's a silly question. He'll
It's
tell you
not
when
a
he's
silly
ready to
question. Either you want to run or you don't want to run. I take him at his word.
When someone who is going to run for president wants to announce is when they tell you. They're not going to tell you just because you ask, and it would be a dumb time for him to announce now.
But he said definitively no. And when if I ask you, Ann, are you writing a book? You'll say yes, or I'm thinking about it. But if you say no, never again, I take you at your word.
None. A, it's different from an announcement to run for president, and B, if he doesn't run for president, he's a total jerk.
Okay, I'll tell him you said that. Thanks a lot, Ann Coulter. We appreciate it. And by the way, Greta has Donald Trump on tonight. We check in with her for a sneak peek. And I'm going to see him later in the week.
All those things that
news.
Ann Coulter says doesn't happen on Fox News. We'll find out in the next 20 minutes, I guess. Also, we have tonight, in addition to Donald Trump, we have a little clip from Mike Tyson. We interviewed Mike Tyson. We'll have much more of it later in the week. But Congressman King is here, as well as Governor Jan Brewer from the state of Arizona. Big news down in Arizona. And we have so much more. Back to you, Sean.
All right, our Great American panel's next with a picture of Bob Beckel when he was a child. You don't want to miss this. Also, Deirdre Imus, much more straight ahead. Yeah, exactly. All right, tonight on our Great American panel, he's former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, Fox News contributor, USA Today columnist, the one and only Beckel is back. We're going to show you a picture when you were a kid in a minute. No. He is a Washington Post columnist, author of the New York Times bestseller, Courting Disaster. Mark Thiessen is here. She is the founder and the president of the Deirdre Imus Environmental Center for Pediatric Oncology at Hackensack University Medical Center, the wife of radio host Don Imus, and also the co-host of Blonde on Blonde, which is one of my favorite segments of the show. How are you, Deirdre? Good to see you.
I'm great.
What did Imus do wrong to give you that necklace?
Why do you always assume the worst from him?
Because I've been around both of you. I know what it's like.
And maybe he didn't give this to me. Maybe it was somebody else.
Oh.
Maybe I had it.
Oh.
You assume way too much.
Oh, I'm dead tomorrow, so I just opened myself
we'll
up.
stay right out of that one.
So we got a picture of Bob when he was 4 years old. And I want to put it up on the screen because I don't think this has ever been seen before.
Don't.
Did you see this? It's this new J. Crew ad, and you can't really, well, you can't see it as closely, but the mother paints the toenails of the boy, and that's Bob on the right.
That's very funny. That's very good. Yeah.
Are you the one getting your toenails painted?
Yeah.
No.
Pink, hot pink.
Good look for you.
That's.
All right, let's move on. What do you to talk about?
J. Crew model, I like that.
Yeah, I like that. All right, budget deal. Thoughts?
Well, I think the whole thing's a scam. I mean, Mark Levin said it. I'm going to quote him. Mm-hmm. But also, I think until we're serious, truly, about addressing the 1.5 million children that are going to be entering the system at adulthood with autism that there is no money funding there, and this is a train wreck happening that the government isn't paying attention to.
Wait. On the one hand, you're saying that we're not balancing the budget. On the other hand, you want money, government money, for environmental issues. And
well, that's a health issue. Children's health should come first, and it's not. And that's been the big problem, I think, through all the administrations, because now we see this with all these epidemics with our children's health. The first generation of children that epidemic proportions with asthma and allergies and obesity and diabetes and autism and cancer.
And childhood obesity.
And they're the ones that are suffering in these families. And I know because I work with all these families.
I've got a child with autism, so I understand what you're saying. But the most important thing we can do for our children is to not saddle them with trillions and trillions of dollars of debt that we can't repay. And the Republicans have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity right now with this debt limit vote to force changes on the Obama administration.
Here's my problem. The Republicans, I like the Ryan budget. I think this is a serious document. I think it really, $6.2 trillion is a lot of money, especially after Obama's deficits. Here's the problem. They promised $100 billion in cuts. Then it was, all right, we'll prorate it to 61, and then it becomes $38 billion. And I'm like, why the fear to shut down the government? Shut the darn government down and stick by your word.
They have to stand firm, but the difference between the government shutdown fight and the debt limit fight is Obama has no leverage in the debt limit fight. Obama's weapon in this fight was he could shut the government down. He would use his veto to veto a temporary spending measure. He will not veto a debt limit, a temporary increase in the debt limit. So he has no weapon.
You're saying this is the strategy that they have?
This has to be the strategy. I don't know if it is the strategy.
It is the most outrageously irresponsible, childish thing the Republicans have ever done. The idea that the Speaker of the House would get on television this morning after that scam of a budget deal on both sides, by the way, that thing, when you really cut it down, you're not going to find a whole lot of stuff really cut.
Spit in the ocean.
But listen, the Ryan thing is a draconian, irresponsible, but nonetheless, it is out there.
I know they want to kill women.
No, I'm not saying he killed women, but it's a $6 trillion cut in the deficit and $4 trillion given back in tax cuts for rich people. Now, that to me is just ridiculous.
The most popular part of the Medicare program is Medicare Part D, which is subsidies for prescription drug coverage. All he is proposing doing is remaking all of Medicare in the image of the popular and successful Medicare Part D. Why would we not do that?
Mark, you know that's not what he's doing.
That's exactly what
first of all, you're talking about the George Bush pharmaceutical part of Medicare, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you look at what he's essentially saying is, I'm going to give you seniors, if you're 45 now, you're going to fall in this plan. I'm going to give you a block of money to go buy in the open market insurance.
Well, what
no.
Well, he just mentioned the word pharmaceutical. To me, that's the big issue here too. Is pharmaceutical companies own these politicians, these lobbyists with the multi-billions of dollars that they spend own our health care. That's why we don't have certain services and treatments for children with autism or cancer, where these parents literally mortgage their homes over and lose everything when their child gets a diagnosis.
They spend billions and billions before they can get approval. They prolong our lives, give us a better quality of life. They help save lives. I mean,
well, yeah, there's two sides to that argument, because there are a lot of them that get pushed through the FDA that we find out after, like Vioxx and other drugs that have killed people. And they knew ahead of time that these things were dangerous.
But what about the cancer treatment drugs that they passed that literally people would be dead if they didn't have some of them?
I agree with that.
Okay.
But again,
I feel like I'm Lease Wheel.
but why aren't why aren't we considering more prevention and wellness when we look at the whole child or the whole adult? And that's not
considered. These programs are going bankrupt, and Obama has not led on entitlements. He had not come out with a plan. Paul Ryan stepped forward and came up with a plan, and we have to save these programs.
But wait, we are going to have a plan from Obama on Wednesday. That's all right.
Finally.
We'll have two competing plans, and let's have a debate on it. Do not hold the debt ceiling hostage over that.
We are.
Irresponsible.
More with our great American panel. Straight ahead. And we continue now with our great American panel. All right, there's a lot of protests in France over this ban on women wearing the burqa.
It's crazy. I can't believe Sarkozy was able to pass this. I mean, again, separation between church and state.
But here's the problem. When they've tried to be too accommodating in Europe, you have separate Sharia courts. What is it, 85, 88 of them in Great Britain, for example? You would know better than me, right?
I don't know.
Somewhere, okay, all right. And the argument that has been made in Belgium and France and in Great Britain is there's no assimilation.
That's
that you have
exactly
two
it.
separate cultures in society that have emerged that are contradictory, Sharia being contradictory to the concept.
But
That's
if
exactly-
that's part of their religion, it's out of respect to let a woman dress like
Right,
that.
out of respect to
If
their
that's
religion.
sacred,
What if a woman claims she's raped? Does she need 4 male eyewitnesses?
that is totally a separate issue.
It-
You're
I agree
confusing
with that.
anything religious. Think of all of a sudden if they were saying you couldn't wear a cross because you're a Catholic or a Christian, or you couldn't wear a yarmulke, or the Hasidim with the dress they wear, all of a sudden saying that you couldn't do that anymore because that you don't fit in.
But is
that
it
is so
because of
wrong.
Sharia related?
Well, France doesn't have a burqa problem. France has an assimilation problem. You hit it exactly on the head. Remember the old Schoolhouse Rock video, The Great American Melting Pot? They don't have that. So when Muslims come from all these different countries to France, they live in these ghettos. They have their separate Sharia law and Sharia courts, and they are separate from French society. They can live in France for generations, but they'll never be French. In America, we have we still have problems, but we at least have a tradition of assimilation, and that's what the French don't have.
Could I straighten you guys out on these Sharia courts for a second?
We've been waiting all night for you to straighten us out.
I bet you have. These are Sharia courts dealing with Islamic law within their community. If you murder somebody in Britain, you don't get to go to Sharia court and get it dealt with, number one. But the other thing is, I agree on the assimilation part. The French have never done that very well because they're arrogant. In fact, it was interesting to see the French finally put troops on the ground after we bailed them out of World War II. I think it's the first time we've seen them with troops on the ground. And Sarkozy, but Deirdre's exactly right. To do this to these people, to not allow them to wear their religious habit, is absolutely counter to everything from the Magna Carta on down. It runs in the face of everything.
Well, imagine that in this country. And already, even with religious exemption, that they've taken that right away from parents.
The problem is you have, even the ground zero imam wants America more Sharia compliant. Sharia is the antithesis of every founding document and principle this country stands on. So you've got an inherent built-in conflict here. Do you
but we're talking about respecting a religion and how they want to dress.
Right, but
it's like saying the Pope going to France. When the Pope goes to France, he can't wear all those pretty robes that he wears. And
what they have discovered is once you open the door, it doesn't work. Is what they've discovered.
But you're hitting on the right problem, which is that we have a tradition of assimilation in this country, but we're losing it in this country. We are not assimilating the way we used to. People used to come to this country, and within a generation, I mean, my mother came from Poland after World War II. If it wasn't for an accident of history called World War II, I would have grown up in communism. I'm as American as apple pie in one generation.
But let's remember
Pakistani kids, all kids from all over the world come here like this. We are not teaching assimilation the way we used to.
Mark, but there's a difference. America is an accumulation of 143 different cultures.
Yeah.
These other countries, France and others, are cultures that go back hundreds of years. And they don't know how to assimilate. That's part of their problem. Yeah. And they're paying a big price for it. The British are paying a big price for it, too. Yeah. But that doesn't mean, and your fear about Sharia law is not going to be coming to the United States.
No, that's not going to happen.
But we had a judge in New Jersey rule on a case and cite that the rights of people in the Muslim faith to apply Sharia outside of
the big problem, though, is that if you don't have assimilation, it opens up to extremists to recruit these people because they feel alienated from society, they don't feel part of society, and so they are fodder for the extremists to come recruit them to become suicide bombers and terrorists.
Well, the French do think differently because they were even quoted in some of the articles about this being passed. An economist, a French person in Paris, quoted as saying, when you're in France, be like the French. I mean, he basically said it, that's how they feel.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't want to take
anybody would want to be like the French.
I don't want to take away people's religious rights. I don't.
I don't want to be French either. Anybody want to be French would be out of their mind. That's all right.
Why do you